Are you confused about writing? Do you not know where to start or even how to finish? Do you love writing so much that it burns deep in your soul, but you still don't know how to meet your goals? Are you looking for a little inspiration that will take you on a writer's vacation? Then let us all write together. Let us all write our way. Hello everyone, welcome to Write Our Way, Season 3, Episode 2. Today we're going to talk about some ways of how we can be distraction-free when writing our stories. Now, if you're anything like me, I know that this is not an easy task. You always hear about these famous authors and how they just blast through writing a book within a week or within a month. You're just like, how do they do it? How do they find the time? How do they focus on just finishing the whole story all the way through with no hiccups down the road? And I'm going to go ahead and say it. One of the main things for me getting past this is just getting away from any type of electronics. I know in this day and age we're so used to typing on computers, but computers have notifications and we have our emails, we have YouTube and etc. So many other distractions that prohibit us from really diving into our story and just seeing it all the way through. Now, is getting away from this gonna get you writing a story within a day or a week? Not necessarily. That takes a whole different mindset and discipline, which takes some time to inherit. I noticed this especially when I got this amazing typewriter from a friend of mine. I think it was made in 1966. It's a Royal. Apparently that's like the Apple of like typewriters back in the day. But ever since using that, I've noticed that I've been flowing through my stories much faster than what I would on a computer. I mean, there's really not much for me to be distracted from. It's just me and my thoughts at this point. Now, I know there's a 90% chance that most of you guys don't have typewriters. No one usually does. I mean, they're really hard to find nowadays. They're kind of rare, especially the ones like in 1966. I mean, wow. And you just don't find those anymore. But if you don't have anything like that, the next thing I would recommend and my always go-to is a journal, some type of like college rule journal or spiral notebook that you can write your stories in. And using that alone will help you focus more on your stories and get away from the distractions. However, I can still see how this could be kind of like an issue for most of you who need or rely on the internet for like research to look up a certain word or synonym or just research a topic that you're not too familiar with, but it's in your story and you want to make sure you get all your facts right. Well, this right here is another form of distraction that keeps you from finishing your story. What I highly recommend is you break up your projects. So take like your synonyms and whatnot and create a word bank. And this is something you're going to want to do on your spare time, like time where you're not actually writing the story, just time where you're just kind of like doing some wordsmith research. You want to learn more things about the English language and the different meanings and the different phrases you can use to not make your story seem so repetitive. Trust me, I was guilty for that in my early writing stages, but I've done a good job and been very thorough about making sure that does not happen in my stories. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are some words you're going to repeat, but repeating them like each paragraph or repeating, I wouldn't say each paragraph, but repeating the same word within the same paragraph like 6 times is a no-go. Like that does not help you at all as a writer. And any experienced writer is going to notice that and it's going to be kind of off-putting, even for the non-experienced reader, you know. But just going back to the word bank, this will aid you when writing your story. So whenever you feel like, oh man, I've said this word 1,000 times, or I can't really think of a word to express this dramatic scene that I'm exposing to my readers. Whenever you feel like this, just check your word bank for a brief second. I mean, your word bank should always be right next to you, so you don't ever feel hung up on your story and you can keep your flow going, basically. And the same thing will be for like when you do your research, right? You're going to have already your notes to the side of what you've researched. But again, just like the word bank, you need to find spare time to do this, not do it at the same time you're writing your story. Again, guys, it's all about flowing through the story. And I think I haven't really did much research on other authors, but I'm pretty sure that's how they're able to flow through their stories so quickly, is because they've already done their research and they already have a pretty good list of words already in their head that they have already studied over the years of them just being avid readers and being lovers of just words, just loving the ways of communication and how we deliver our stories to everyone, and more so how these words impact the reader emotionally. So just moving along, the next thing I would say, or the next reason to why we tend to get distracted as writers and we can't finish these stories as fast as we want, is because sometimes I think we're just a little too comfortable in the setting that we're in. And I'm sure you guys are all wondering what I mean by that. And what I mean is that, for me, for example, when I'm at home, I'm way too comfy and I have all the access to all my things, games, TV, etc., food. I mean, we still got to eat, right, to write, but or then again, the starving artist, it only actually pushes us more when we're hungry. But we'll talk about that down the road later, or another episode. But yeah, it's the comfortability of being where we're at, and that can be a distraction itself. And so I truly believe that changing your environment will enable you to do what you're trying to finish something, right? And it would also kind of spark your creativity getting outside of the box, meaning your home. So home can feel sometimes like a box when you're in it all day, every day. And so it's good to maybe go to the library, maybe go outside, take your journal, go to like a park, and just write away. But I know nowadays how things are not as safe as they used to be, so I'm going to just tell you guys, please be safe whenever you change your environment. Make sure you're around other people. Make sure you're in a pretty safe environment when you're writing. I would never recommend you guys to, put yourselves in harm's way. So I deeply care for you guys, and I deeply want you guys to continue doing what you love, which is writing. And so please, again, just make sure when you are looking for a change of pace or a change of environment, make sure it's an area where you feel safe and you can dive into your stories with no distractions. Now, the next thing I'm going to say isn't really a distraction at all. It really just depends on the person, but I know there's a lot of you guys out there that have a hard time just staying awake when you write your stories. It's not to say that they're boring. It's just, sometimes you run out of fumes and it sucks because you're really trying to accomplish something and you feel like you can never find the energy to push through it. But I'm going to tell you guys what a lot of famous writers have said, and that's literally to just put a little bit of writing in every day. It doesn't have to be for 5 hours straight. It could be half an hour to an hour. As long as you're chipping away at it each day, then that, my friends, is getting you much closer to finishing your story, finishing your book, finishing your comic, or whatever story you're trying to tell your audience. There's really no pressure, so don't pressure yourself, I mean, I feel like the only time you would have pressure as a writer is if you literally had a publisher already write you a check and they got a deadline for you and you got to hit that deadline, have the book done at that specific time. That's the only time you should be, sweating your ass off. But when you're writing a story and there's no real deadline but the deadline that you've created, yeah, there should be really no pressure. You haven't been paid anything yet. You haven't been sponsored in any way or advertised in any way for the book. So at that point, it's just focus on making a good story, as Neil Gaiman would say, focus on making good art. At the end, right? That's all that matters. It's just you making good art. You putting out a story that people will talk about, that it will be like a domino effect that they'll recommend to other people. That's every writer's goal and dream, is to have their stories be loved. You just don't want it to be another book on the shelf. So why rush it, for it to be that? I'd say, again, don't pressure yourself. Chip at it every day. If it's 30 minutes, 20 minutes, as long as you write something that day. And for most of us who are pretty fast at typing, half an hour, you're going to write at least a page, and that's good to do every day. So again, I'm going to keep saying there's really no pressure. So, don't beat yourselves up, guys. Keep doing what you do. You got this. And last but not least, guys, I think the final tip that I have for you about being distraction free for writing is, and I think I've spoke about this before, which is instrumentals. I know for some writers, they don't necessarily like the silence. For me, it works wonders. It definitely helps me push through my stories a lot faster. But I know for some of you guys who are not the introverted type, that being in complete silence doesn't work. Sometimes you have to have something that stimulates your mind a little bit. And I would say have some jazz music or classical music, anything that's instrumental, but not too intense, and nothing again with lyrics, because when you're trying to hear your own thoughts, having lyrics in the background kind of distracts your actual thoughts. Like there's two people talking, it's you and the musician talking. And I don't know, for some of you guys that might work. I know for me and other writers that I know that does not work at all. We absolutely have to hear our own voice. We can't have people talking in the background. But I think this is standard for most writers. But yeah, guys, I think this is pretty much it for all I have as far as being distraction free. And this applies to all forms of writing, right? Like this applies to even content writers that you might be writing for your YouTube page or your vlog, anything. You really want to be immersed in your writing. Writing is one of those things that you just can't play around with. There's too many rooms for error, because when you get distracted, you miss the dots that connect, and that will also off-put a lot of your audience when you say one thing and then say another and they don't even coincide with each other. It's just, you can't do that. It's just not good. It's not good for your product. It's not good for your brand. It's not good for your content in general. So yeah, just make sure you're making out some time to focus, basically. If there's any word I could have for it, it's just focus. Find a discipline to just really sit down and focus. And again, I know for some that's hard. I have friends that have ADHD, and I know it's hard to just sit down and really tune in on something, and that's okay. Like, it's not to say that you can't be a writer or you can't create this content. Again, baby steps. There's no pressure. Give yourself 10, 15 minutes. If it's only 5 minutes, whatever you can put in matters, as long as you're trying. That's the goal, to get to where you want, And so, yeah, don't be discouraged if you have anything of the sort like ADHD or any other symptoms that might prohibit you from doing what you love to do. And if you don't believe me, do some research. I guarantee you'll find people out there that even have like autism that still do incredible things and are incredible artists. So don't sell yourself short, guys. We aren't limited, We're only limited by the limits that we put on ourselves. Don't put limits on yourself. Crap, did I say lemons? I mean limits, not lemons, guys. We don't want to be sour out here, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, you guys know it. Love you all. Keep writing, and stay tuned for the next episode. Hit that follow button so you can keep in touch and stay up to date with the new season. We got a lot of great episodes coming ahead, and become a child again. Imagine, my friends, and I'll see you again.